Yo, what's up, Quadacy? Man, we miss you guys so much. Uh,
So much. Please come back.
but we hope you're doing okay. Hey, we just wanted to say, first off, we miss you. And second off, we're super excited over these next couple weeks. We're going to have our new series start off, which is called
Design. Guys, this series is designed for us to kind of see that life works best whenever we follow how God sort of designed it to work. It's a really cool series, and we got some really cool speakers who are.
Word. First up, we have Tracy Horton. She's one of our 8th grade female leaders. She's awesome, and she's going to talk to us
Woo!
about freedom. And then we have our very own Silas Huffer. Do
I don't
people call him
know.
Si?
Never heard of them. Who
Silas? I don't
knows?
know. And he's going to be teaching us about design, about how true freedom is in Christ, and that's where our identity as Christians is most fulfilled and most meaningful. We hope
Yep.
to see you guys. Stay tuned.
What's up, middle school, high school students? It's Cy Huffer here, coming to you for your last week of this series that we are looking into our salvation and the security of our identity in Jesus. It's a unique moment in history. And it's weird being a 7th grader or a senior, realizing that you are living in a once-in-a-lifetime moment in history, which brings obstacles and opportunities. And in this interesting season, you're spending a lot of time alone. Like probably more time alone than lots of middle school and high school students spend alone. It's you're not going out with friends at Taco Bell late at night. It's not having hangouts after football games or going out to basketball games or baseball games or whatever, track meets or having prom. I mean, things have changed drastically for you in this season, in this crisis. And so with all this time that you're spending by yourself, I truly believe that in these formative years, both God and Satan are speaking to you and trying to get your attention. It's kind of like on Emperor's New Groove, where you have Kronk has the angel and the demon on his shoulders, and they're both trying to get him to make decisions over and over and over again. You have an enemy, Satan, who is trying to accuse you, who is trying to deceive you, who's bringing up old sins, old habits, who's trying to shame you, to make you feel less than nothing, like you're not worth anything, who's trying to bring about your sin in front of your face and get you to feel guilty about what you've done, that God would never love you the way that you are, and you've got to earn your faith, you've got to earn your standing with God and with others. And then you have God, who's trying to whisper to you and get your attention about who you are in Him. And I actually asked this question in my sermon this last Sunday, and I was actually going to ask it to you first, and so I'm going to ask it to you again. What do you see when you look in the mirror? When you look at the mirror, and it's just you and God, and you have the voices of Satan and the voices of God coming at you, what do you see? It reminds me of Cool Runnings. It's an old movie that came out probably in the early 90s. I don't remember when it came out, but I watched it growing up in the 90s. Loved Cool Runnings. If you've not seen it, it's about these Jamaican sprinters. It's based on a true story. That all weren't able to make the Olympics. And yet they got turned into a bobsled team for the Winter Olympics. Well, there's not much ice in Jamaica. And yet here are these sprinters. They're able to do really, really good at the Winter Olympics as a bobsled team. And there's this one moment where you have this guy named Junior. And Junior has a dad who's overbearing, who's very wealthy, who has high expectations for his son, and his son never lives up to him and has really, really low self-esteem. And you have another guy who brings Junior into the bathroom, and when Junior's identity, and you could see his self-esteem was just really, really low, and he wasn't standing up for himself to his dad. And this other guy on the team, he brings Junior into the bathroom, and he says, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? Look in the mirror, tell me what you see. And he says, I see Junior. He goes, I see Junior. He goes, you know what I see? And then his friend says this, I see pride. I see power. I see someone who's not going to take any crap from anyone. He said, again, you say it, Junior. And then Junior says, I say pride. He goes, really? Why don't you say it like you believe it? So Junior says, I see pride. I see power. I see someone who's not going to take any crap from anyone. Again, he's yelling it, he's getting all excited, and he's getting all built up. And he's working himself up into a frenzy, and he goes out and he stands up to his dad. And I think that's a moment that I want to take out of that funny movie. And I want to have you look at the mirror. And I want not just another human being, but I want God to come next to you. And I want God to tell you what he sees. Because when you look in the mirror, the question is, what do you see? This is what God sees. Paul says it to the church in Colossians, in Colossians chapter 3, verse 1. He says this, since you have been raised with Christ, set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. See, there's this interesting relationship of being and doing. Okay? We exist, we are who we are. And then there's the things that we do, what we do because of who we are. Our identity always leads to action, and action always reinforces our identity. It's a cycle, being and doing, identity and action, okay? Being raised with Christ and setting your heart on things above. It's like the identity of a fireman is to fight fires, okay? I fight fires because I'm a fireman. And I'm a fireman, my identity is a fireman because of what I do, I fight fires. They both reinforce each other, okay? They work together. And what's saying here is because you have been, as a Christian, you have been raised with Christ, that's who you are. It has nothing to do with what you do. All to do with what Jesus did for you on the cross and how he rose again. And how when you believe in him, put your faith in him, he raises you up with Jesus and gives you a new identity, a new name, a new creation. You become a new person. And because of God's work in your life first, now set your hearts on things above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. Verse 2, set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. So your identity leads to your actions. And then what happens is when you set your hearts on things above, and your mind on things above, when you don't think like other people around you, you don't desire other things around you that people desire, it goes back to, well, why do you do that? Why don't you do this? Why don't you party? Why do you pray? Why do you go to church? Why don't you look at porn? And you can say, well, it's because of who I am. My actions are reinforced by my identity. And what does that look like to set your mind, your hearts on things above? Look at verse 3. It says this, for you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. There's a guy named Theodore Cuyler. He tells a story about a woman in her depression. Was at a cabin, fought in the woods, just trying to just be by herself and get to some clarity on who she was and why she was struggling with all these issues. And she said that a bird got caught up in her cabin in this big kind of living room area that had really, really tall ceilings that went up to both like the 2 stories of the house. And the bird kept trying to fly higher and higher to get out of the house, to get out of this trap that the bird found itself in. The bird's free outside in the house, it feels trapped. So it's trying to fly higher and higher and higher. Well, the bird got in because the front door was left open. She liked the air coming into the house. And it was only when the bird flew down and down and down, lower and lower and lower, did it discover the door to get out and the freedom of getting out of the house back out into the open world. The same is true for you. The way in which you find yourself, the way in which you are made new, you set your heart on things above, where your identity and your actions meet up. It's not by elevating yourself higher and higher and higher. It's actually denying yourself. Denying your fleshly desires, denying your selfish wants, denying that the world revolves around you, and sinking lower and lower and lower until in your humility, in your sacrifice, in your death to yourself, you find freedom in Jesus. Just like that bird, you're able to find freedom and the way out of life revolving around you. Tony Evans says it this way, if there's no dying, there's no living. And this is what happens. When we die to ourselves, when we die to trying to figure out our own identity by what we do, instead of receiving the identity from Jesus, which allows us to show us what to do and to make us new, this is what happens. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. Here's the main message I came to say to you today. It's this in a nutshell. Your identity doesn't come from deep inside of you, but from the one who saved you. Let me say that again. Your identity does not come from deep inside of you, but from the one who saved you. Your identity doesn't come from you just looking inside yourself and figuring out who you are. That's never going to work. That's making yourself the center of your world. And that's exactly what sin is. That's what sin does to you. It makes you put you above everything else, and what happens is you have nothing else left but you. Which is what basically the world looks like right now at your house by yourself. Staring into a mirror all alone. No. Your identity does not come from deep inside you, but it comes from the one who saved you. If you are in Jesus, the Father looks at you, and this is what he wants to say to you. I'm just going to read these out. He wants to say to you, think about that guy standing next to his friend looking in the mirror. He says, I see my child. I see someone made new. I see a masterpiece. I see someone who was chosen. I see a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. I see a part of my body. I see someone made in my image. I see light in the darkness. I see a city on a hill. I see the salt of the earth. Now, it doesn't matter what I say, or what your friend says, or your small group says, or your parent says, although those are important. You listen to some of those things, but you could listen to the wrong voice. Doesn't matter what Satan says, that Satan on your shoulder, and the whispers and the accusations and deceptions. What matters is what God says about you. Do you believe that? That he made you new, and that's what he sees. I'm going to challenge you to do a similar thing we did on Sunday at church. I'm going to challenge you to do the same thing. Pick one of these things. I see my child. Someone made new, a masterpiece. Someone's chosen, a new creation. Someone resurrected. I see a beautiful bride. And write those things on your mirror when you brush your teeth. When you brush your teeth, standing at your mirror, look at that. And remember that your identity is secure because it doesn't come from deep inside of you. It's not something you create. It's not some persona you put out for the world to see. No, it comes from the one who saved you, from the God who's always the same, who never changes, who's the creator of the universe, and who died and raised you to new life. Let me pray for you. Lord, I ask that these students today, that they can know that their identity is secure, not because of anything that they do, but because of what you have done for them. And may they live their life out of security, knowing that they are accepted, they are made new, they are redeemed and rescued, and that they are yours. We pray all this in your holy name.